Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Outmarket.pro Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Stein. Today, I'm really excited to welcome a guest who brings a truly global perspective to small business success. William McKissock. Am I pronouncing that right, William?
Yes,
McKissock?
yes.
Good. He's originally from Scotland, accent included, and it'll be obvious to you in just a moment the difference in our accents, mine being deep south US and his Scottish. Um, he has been building, buying, and optimizing businesses in the US since 2011. He has a background in economic development, working alongside Scotland's National Economic Development Agency, and more than 15 years as a hands-on entrepreneur in the US. William knows what it takes to grow and protect a business from the inside out, from owning service-based companies to advising franchise owners. He now helps businesses improve profitability as an expense reduction specialist with Schooley Mitchell, the largest firm of its kind in North America. If you're a small business owner, medium business owner, or even a larger business looking to keep more of what you earn and make smarter financial decisions without sacrificing growth, you'll want to lean into this conversation. Let's dive in with William. Welcome, William. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Marco. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, this is a concept that I have been aware of for quite a while and really supportive of it. Let's first talk about your background in a little more detail and maybe weave into that how you became aware of the need for a cost reduction role for companies, and then move into what drew you to the role.
Yeah, my whole background story is quite interesting, and I'll kind of tell you like right from the start of my working life, as it were, through to me coming to the United States and how I ended up with an expense reduction consulting franchise with Schooley Mitchell. So I actually left high school. I didn't tell you this before. I left high school with no qualifications. I just wanted to go out in the world and work and earn money and have fun as a youngster. So I didn't like school. I wasn't into school, so I was happy just to go and do my own thing. So it was in my late 20s, sorry, my mid to late 20s, I went back to school and I got my high school qualifications because I met who's my now wife, and she was at St Andrews University. So I saw that kind of education person and that was with me. So I decided to educate myself and see if I could get a better job. So I did that. Then I spent 6 years at night school to get my business degree. So I graduated with my business degree when I was 37. So talk about being a late starter. So that set me up in better jobs. Obviously, the more I was educating myself, the better jobs I could get because I used to push a lawnmower, cut the grass for local government, that kind of thing, the parks department. So I was able to work my way up through the ladders, and that ended up with me settling in, working for an organisation called South Ayrshire Council as the Rural Economic Development Officer, and that tied in with my business administration degree. So that's kind of like where my career began to flourish, late on in life, but it began to flourish. So I worked in that for a number of years, and then I went to work for Scottish Enterprise, as you'd mentioned, Scotland's National Economic Development Agency. So I was working with Scottish Enterprise. I remember I had to resign from my job, and I had a really good job when we moved to the United States in January 2011. So when I came here, I had no idea what I was going to do because my wife was the one that got the green cards through sponsorship. She's the higher educated person than me, so she got the job that got us green cards. So I was like, what am I going to do? So after a few months of like not knowing what to do, applying for some jobs, insurance companies seemed to like me. I found myself buying into cleaning floors because I'm a worker as well as I discovered I can educate myself. So I started cleaning floors, and I started a company called Highlander Hard Surface Restoration. And talk about learning the hard way, because even though I worked in economic development, working with businesses and supporting businesses in Scotland, I'd never run a business. I'd never actually done it myself. So I'd recommend anybody that works in economic development, do a business because you'll learn a lot that you don't already know. So made some mistakes, but I kept that going for 8 years. And during that time, I decided I wanted something else. So I started doing franchise consulting. So that's showing people how to buy franchises and help them buy a franchise, help them get something that fits their needs and their wants. So during that time, looking at franchises, I discovered Schooley Mitchell, and that's how I discovered the expense reduction consulting company I'm with today. And that just kind of related to me as coming from an economic development background, helping businesses. So in this case, it's a piece of economic development, and that's the way I view it. I'm helping businesses because everything we do is about helping businesses reduce expenses with no out-of-pocket expense. It was a perfect match for me. So I signed up with Schooley Mitchell in 2016. I'm now in my 10th year, and I've just extended for another 5 years. So I've extended my contract, as it were, as a franchisee until 2031. I'm continuing to do this for a long time because I love what I'm doing. I always loved the economic development work. This allows me to do some of that. But as a business owner, working with a huge franchise that gives me all the support that I need, like I had when I worked in government.
Very good. Is there an optimal size for a business to make the most of what your services do?
The actual size of the business doesn't matter. For example, a company could be running an e-commerce business out of their garage, and they could be spending, I don't know, $2,000, $3,000 a month shipping their products to people. It doesn't actually matter the size of the business. Obviously, the larger the business, the better. And for me, as a franchisee who's now in my 10th year, I've been doing this a long time, I don't go knocking on the doors of the really small businesses. Don't get me wrong. If you said to me, I've got like 10 small businesses I want to talk to you, I'll talk to them all day long. The rule for us is you have to meet the minimum spends. And I'll give you an example. The minimum spend for telecom is you have to spend at least $1,000 a month on your wireless cell services. Your wireline service, you have to spend like $750 a month. You have to be spending at least $1,000 a month for us to look at your small package shipping. So we have a minimum spend. So that's like the smallest client that we're able to work with. The reason we have that, because if we start working with a client that's only spending $200 a month, we're not going to find much savings. We're not going to find enough to justify our effort because we do all the work for nothing. We only get paid if we produce results and savings. So we have to have a level where we know if we find savings, it's worth our while to do the work for nothing for the client to save them money. So we don't have a certain size of client that we won't work with. It comes down to the spend. Having said that, I like working with really large clients. The medium-sized clients and the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars, those are fantastic clients for us. Even the billion-dollar clients, fantastic client for us. Clients that have got lots of locations, they're good clients because the money gets lost when you've got lots of locations and you're trying to deal with lots of different vendors, look at lots of different contracts. Because if you're a company, you've got locations all over the place, even like all over Florida where I am, you're going to have different vendors, you're going to have different contracts, you're going to have different views of what the invoices look like. You're going to have all of that to deal with, as well as not knowing what they're charging everybody else and not being an expert in that particular industry. So small, medium to large, yes, absolutely. But I tend to lean into the medium to the larger businesses. But as I say, I'll always take a small business, hands down. I'll help anybody I can as long as they meet the minimum spends.
And so is the telecom bill sort of the indicator? So that's the only, you use that as a criteria to let you know what other potential savings you might find. That's the only invoice, the wireless and the landline, that you look at to determine the criteria?
Well, that's telecom. That's just one of the 14 categories, because we do the same process for waste, shipping. We do it for software as a service, uniforms and linens. There's 14 different categories. I'm not going to rattle them all off. If somebody wants to reach out to me with my details, I can certainly have a conversation with it. But using telecom as an example of one category, our job when we're working with a client is we sign all the paperwork to get the business piece in place. Then we go through what we call a fact finding with each client for each category, because we do the same work individually for each of the different categories. And using telecom as an example, you would sign our business terms, you would sign letters of authorization to allow us to speak to your vendors. Then we would go through a fact-finding questionnaire with you to understand your particular needs, your particular wants, and why you're doing it a certain way. We need to understand all of that. Then we start looking at the billing statements and your contracts, because that gives us a story in itself. So we piece that together. Then we go and start working with your vendors to try and get you a better deal, equal a better service. And we almost always find savings, and especially in telecom is a great example of one of the categories. Telecom is an example where we almost always help the client get a better service, even if we don't find savings, because you know the rule with us, if we don't find savings, there's no cost. Even in cases where we haven't found savings, we've still managed to help the client improve their service a little bit, just because we've been getting in and poking around a little bit. So yes, there's a story that comes together between the invoices and the needs of the client, that we put that together, and then that informs us, so that when we're speaking to the vendors on behalf of the client, we're able to give them an informed report with recommendations on it. And that's all free. There's no cost to that. If there's no savings, the client doesn't pay us. And even if they don't like the recommendations, they still don't have to pay us. They only pay us if we find savings and they like what it is. Then we work with the vendors to make sure they implement for the client. We don't get paid from the vendors. That's an absolute no-no for us. We can't even take like a referral fee from one of the vendors that we would look at. So we don't get paid from the vendors. We only get paid by saving the client. We bill the client the difference between what they were paying and what they're now paying, and we bill the client in between, and we continue to monitor that over the period of our contract. And we can talk more about that during this conversation.
Yeah, let's do get specific about the fee model. And by the way, I love this fee model, because you're saying we know this business, we can save you money, and if we do, we get to be part of the financial rewards, and if not, we don't. So and usually is it the same percentage for all of those 14 categories? And how long does it last? Because usually it sunsets after a certain number of years.
Yeah.
In what you get of the savings.
Yeah, our standard agreement is 50% of the savings over 36 months. And I'll kind of I know if somebody's watching this right now, they might think that's a lot, that's a long time. Well, I mean, 50% of something's better than 100% of nothing. Because where you are right now, you're on 100% of nothing. You're spending your money with your vendors, and you may have the best deal possible, but it's highly likely you don't. And because we bring a whole set of tools to the table that our clients don't have. So 50% is the general. We can adjust it. I mean, if I'm working with a $10 billion client and they wanted to negotiate that, yeah, we would negotiate that. But for 99% of the time, it's a 50% share of the savings over 36 months. And to touch on the objection of it being too long, just say we're working with a large client, say it's a hospital system, we might spend a year going through all the various categories. So our staff are getting paid at headquarters. I'm not getting paid because I'm the franchisee. I don't get anything. The staff at headquarters are still getting their wage, but we need, as franchisees, we need to pull money into the system so that they can continue to get paid. So we spend a lot of time and money and effort developing everything before we ever get paid. And then once we present that report to the client doesn't pay us anything until 3 months after they've been receiving the savings, because we look at your billing statements retrospectively. So when we get to that place where it's been implemented, we wait 3 months, look at your billing statements again to make sure you're getting the price that you're now being offered by your vendors, and you're getting the service. Then we bill you the bit in between. So we bring software tools to the table. We've got a database of pricing. We've been doing this for over 30 years. We're North America's largest independent expense reduction consulting company. We've got 150 members of staff at headquarters, and there's over 360 offices across the United States and Canada. So me, myself personally, and franchisees of Schooley Mitchell, we can all work with clients across the USA and Canada. And we bring all that resource to the table for every single client, small, medium or large, for every single category. So you get all that ammunition. And one way to think about what we're doing, if people are pushing back and saying 50% or 36 months is too long, is like if you get a deal with your one of your vendors, your shipping vendor, you call them up and they give you a better deal. Do you continue to monitor that continuously? Do you give yourself reports every couple of months where you go through your billing statements line for line? Do you have a database of pricing? Do you know what everybody else is paying? Do you continually monitor that industry so you know all the changes, mergers and acquisitions, and all the pricing and all the service charges and everything that's going on with that industry? That's the tools that we bring to the table to make sure our clients, when we get paid that 50% of the savings over the 36 months, the client can continue making their shoes, selling their services, whatever the products or service they sell. there's certain areas that we've looked at that they don't need to worry about because we're on top of it. If they pick a billing statement up and they don't like it and there's a problem with it, we'll deal with it. If there's a problem with the service, we deal with it. We make sure the service delivers what they said they would over the period of our contract. So we bring a whole lot to the table. And one way I've described it before is, imagine I come to you saying, I want to work for you and I want you to pay me 40 grand a year. And my job is to make sure I'm going to look at your billing statements and make sure nothing's wrong in your billing statements. And you're going to say, well, where am I going to get 40 grand a year to pay you? The deal is that I have to find $80,000 in savings. Until I find that $80,000 in savings, you don't pay me anything. How does that sound? And I want you to pay me for 3 years because I'm going to stay on top of this and make sure you stay in the right place for a long time. And then at the end of it, everything I've put in place for you, you get to keep all of it at the end of the 36 months. Does that sound like a good deal? I don't come with any FICA taxes. There's no employee costs. I don't call in sick because I have a team. I've got an army behind me because it's my team at headquarters, the 150 members of staff at headquarters that does all the work. Does that sound like a good deal to you?
It absolutely does. And somebody objecting to it may be thinking it's not 50% of the invoice for that company. It's 50% of the savings for that company. Yes. And so how often do you update? You're getting reports. Do you continue to monitor for that 36 months? And if something's going wrong, you call attention to the company, etc.
Yes, and that's what our post-audit reporting does. And our team, we have a team for that just do telecom. We've got a team that just does credit card processing. We've got a team that just does waste, and so on in all the different categories. So these people are experts. So they know this industry inside out. They just look at billing statements all day long. I'll give you an example. One of my clients, their shipping rep had said to my analyst there was a certain area of the billing statement was correct, and that's exactly what it should be. And we treat the vendors with the utmost respect. We don't go and kick doors in because we understand that our clients have got relationships with them. We take care of that and we look after that. But in this case, my analyst was much more knowledgeable than the rep for this shipping company. And she highlighted a problem to him and he didn't see it until she highlighted it to him. And it's just an example because she was telling me about it, and it wasn't in a way of kind of like tooting her horn. She was just saying, oh yeah, this rep said this thing, and I pointed out that's not the case. So that's an example because these people that we have at headquarters, I jokingly call them the geeks. And I'll say it to their face because they look at billing statements and they do this stuff all day long. Me as the franchisee, I've got an understanding of each of the industries. I have to understand these categories, but my experts are behind the scenes for me. And we bring all that to the table for our clients. So you've got an expert that's only been paid from the savings that we find. So again, if you're spending this amount of money and we're able to get equal or better service for this amount of money, we bill you the bit in between over the period of our 36-month contract. So whatever you're paying us, you're saving double that. So you're always spending less money versus here. It's a guarantee, and it's a guarantee in our business terms, which is a 1.5 page document. There's no wool pulled all over your eyes. It's completely plain to the eye that you can see. It's 1.5 pages. Here's the deal. Here's what we're going to do for you. And here's how we're going to find you savings. And if we don't find you savings, there's no cost to you whatsoever. And there's no cost because we're finding money that you never had, that you were already spending and losing it. We're going to bring it back to the table. So the money you're paying us is from money you never had. As I say, 50% of something's a whole lot better than 100% of nothing because that's where the client is at the moment. Because even when clients say we think they've got the best deal possible, I had a client say that to me like a few years ago. We have the best deal possible. We've just done a review. It was a small package shipping client. So we went to, in this case, it was UPS. And the rep had told us the client's just done a review. They're on the best deal possible. We immediately, my analyst immediately says that's not true because we're working with UPS for thousands of clients. We were able to tell the rep that's not true. So the rep was pushing back. It took us 4 months for the rep to finally come to the table. The client doesn't do any of this. We're doing it because the client says, have a look anyway. It doesn't cost us anything. So at the end of our 36 months that we build the client half of and the client gets to keep all of it, the savings for that client was $365,000. Client thought they had the best deal possible. The rep was telling us they had the best deal possible, but we knew otherwise. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of some of the stories that we can share with Schooley Mitchell, where clients think they've got the best deal possible. And even where they're adamant, there's no way you can help me because I know what I'm doing. It's not a case of that you don't know what you're doing. You just don't have the tools and the knowledge that we have. It's that simple. You don't have what we have, therefore you can't get what we can get, because knowledge is power, and we bring knowledge to the table that any business, any CFO, or any VP of operations, or any COO, any of the persons who are dealing with the billing statements and the vendors, they cannot have the knowledge we have, because they've got a million other things to do in their business, as well as trying to deal with their vendors. They don't know what their vendors are charging everybody else. We bring all that knowledge to the table for our clients.
Right. And, salaried employees are not incentivized by saving money. So, for the most part, very
Yeah.
few, I think, are paid based on really digging into the expenses and making sure. And like you said, you have relationships with many other companies that use the same vendors.
Yes.
So you have a broader view. One of the areas that I'm seeing growing significantly and is really difficult to keep tabs on is subscriptions. There are so many services that are now subscriptions. It started years ago with Microsoft 365. You used to buy the software, now you lease the software.
Yes.
And we're heavily into AI, and all of these AI products are subscription.
Yeah.
And I think more and more companies are moving to a subscription model, including one of my favorite companies, Tesla, that's moving in. They just stopped selling full self-driving. You used to be able to buy it, well, let's see, up till February 14th of 26. You could buy it for $8,000 and own it. But now you have, from February 14th, it's $99 a month. And I think maybe a discount if you pay for the year, but
Right.
you no longer own it. You're just subscribing.
Yeah.
So, and all the mobile apps, web apps. And I do have my bookkeeping team keep track of all of the subscriptions that we have, both my personal as well as business ones. And I'm looking at that every month to be sure we're still using it.
Yeah.
Because if you have an employee using one of these subscription apps, they also are not as attuned as you are as the business owner to, am I using that? Or did
Yeah.
we have it for one client, we lost that client, now we're not using it. So I see that as a real potential growth area for your business because so much is moving to that. What's been your experience, especially in the last couple of years
Yeah, I
with
mean, look,
that?
those kind of subscriptions, like subscribing to QuickBooks, etc., we don't look at that. And as franchisees, the franchisor will decide when we bring in new categories. An example being, when I started in 2016, we only had two categories. We looked at telecom and credit card processing. We've since added more and more on. I don't have control over that. That's a good idea. I hope headquarters will see this video and hopefully they pick up on that. But from a subscription point of view, you're essentially subscribing to everything that you pay for, like telecom. The cell phones, you're subscribing to everything that's to do with those cell phones. And we also, one of our categories is software as a service. So you're subscribing to those Adobe licenses, those Microsoft licenses. And that's a subscription area that we actually do look at. And just like you said, is that we go into especially busy businesses where there's a lot of people. We'll go in and they'll have all these licenses that they're subscribing to, and they've got no idea how much they need the license or how little they need the license. You'll be shocked at how much we come in and say, well, why are you paying this level? You're only ever using it at this level. And in some cases, you're actually paying at this level and you need that level. So we help the client streamline everything. And that's the same with all the categories. Looking at the cost the way we do invariably streamlines for the client, because we show the client this is the most cost-effective way to do this. Therefore, you pay a little bit more here, you pay a little less here, and you'll end up getting the service you need. And overall, for us, it usually involves saving money, because even where specific areas of your license agreements, you may pay a little bit more, because we've said, well, you've got 10 more people that you need on this license, but you've got 40 people here that you don't need in this license. And then it all balances itself out. So like you, yes, you can look at you should be looking at your billing statements on every single month. Every time a billing statement comes in, you should be going through it line for line. Businesses simply don't have the time for that. And then if they find mistakes, do they have the time to call up and get the background music to be waiting in a queue to be answered? All the, the systems these days, everything's automated. So we deal with all that for our clients. And not only that, if you're looking at your billing statements, you don't know what everybody else's billing statements look like. You just don't have that knowledge. So you can think, well, that looks a bit high. That's higher than it should be. Let me call them up. They can tell you any story because you're not knowledgeable about their industry. You're a user. You have a business to run. You cannot know what that business is doing for thousands of clients. You cannot have your finger on the pulse for every single vendor that you work with and know their industry inside out. You're doing a great job looking at your billing statements. Highly, highly, highly recommend you and anybody watching this looks at your billing statements on a regular basis. That's the first place, but you're still lacking in some knowledge that we can bring to the table. But yes, that's the start. Look at your billing statements on a regular basis because it will tell you a huge picture. Know who's using what in your organization. But for us, especially when we go into larger organizations where they've got 1,000+ employees, you'd be shocked at how much businesses don't know who's using what, like cell phones, like Adobe, Microsoft licenses across the board. They don't know who's using what because they just don't have the time and the knowledge and the energy to be able to keep up with it.
Yeah. And I especially see this in the AI industry because these models are leapfrogging each other in terms of effectiveness, general effectiveness, and each one is specializing in a different area. And it's easy to, as an employee, to buy into one of these subscriptions and then go, oops, I don't need that. I need this.
Yeah.
So I think it's a real growth area for you, and I hope you will look into it because I'm seeing more and more things that are subscription based, and even a sunsetting of it, unless we can establish that it's needed, could be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. I'm going to take a guess here. This makes so much sense for businesses of all sizes, especially middle and large. But not everybody does it. And I would imagine overall, a small percentage of companies will engage services of an expense reduction company. So is the main reason that they balk, is it like when somebody, a telemarketer calls you and says they're going to save you money on cell phone, cable, the worst one is credit card processing,
Yeah.
and that companies just have fatigue in this area and don't want, because they do have to spend some time with you, or somebody has to spend some time getting the documentation together. I guess usually the chief financial officer. Is that the main reason why a company might choose not to work with you? And if there are others, what are the other sticking points that keep companies from joining you?
Yeah, well, I'd already mentioned two of the main ones, that the 50% is too much, 36 months is too long. And I've explained that part as like why it's not, because it's 50% of something you don't have right now versus 100% of the nothing that you have right now. And then the term of our contract is that we continue to monitor, and we bring a whole lot of ammunition to the table at the beginning and all the way through it. So those are a couple of the objections, but your objections that you're particularly pertaining to is that businesses are looking at these people who are calling them up and saying, like, I can offer you a better credit card processing deal. I've got the best cell phone service in the country. These people are reps and they're selling a particular brand of product for credit card processing or cell phones in this instance. They may actually be like a broker and say, no, I can get you a better deal, just like Schooley Mitchell does, but they've got a horse in the race. That's the difference between them and us. And it usually means a switch of provider, because with our service, our businesses choose to switch provider or not. Most of our businesses never switch provider. So with those kind of reps, and yes, it's wearing down business owners and CFOs, people getting calls from these people all the time. They lump us in with these groups of people, and we're not them because we don't get paid anything from the companies that we're representing. The companies that we put in front of you, they don't pay us any money whatsoever. So a credit card processing rep calls you up. They're calling you up to ask you to switch providers because they want you to move to their service from the service you're already using. And even where they say, well, I'm a broker for several companies in the credit card processing space, 90% of the time you're going to switch providers. And even if you don't switch providers, that broker is getting paid money from whoever provider you buy from. They've got a reason to push you towards one particular services versus another. So that's the difference between them and us, is that we don't have a horse in the race. Our horse in the race is you, the client. So everything we do is to your benefit. In fact, the service providers, while we've built up relationships at senior levels with the AT&Ts of the world, the UPSs and FedExes of the world, all these companies, we've built relationships at senior levels. Ultimately, they would like it if we didn't exist, because we provide a service where we know their industry as much, if not more, than they do. And we bring that knowledge to the client. So therefore, the clients get much more buying power because of what we do. And we're not asking the vendor to pay us anything. In fact, it's in our license agreement as Schooley Mitchell franchisees. If I was to take a $10 gift card from you and you were a telecom rep or a shipping rep or a credit card processing rep, any of the services, I've breached my license, and that's important. So that's the difference between us and yes, that wear and tear of people calling them up and trying to offer them services. When they hear us saying we can save you money, they think we're the same as them. And that's a very important aspect to understand. We're not the same as them. We're not trying to put you into a pigeonhole of a box with a company that we make money from. Yeah, you might save money, but remember that person's shoving you into something that's making them money from getting paid. You don't pay them anything. You pay us a share of savings of money that you never had. And our whole ethos is to making sure that whatever service provider you choose, remember, you choose the business that you want to do business with, that we don't have that horse in the race, whereas one of these reps, well, they'll kind of choose for you. They'll kind of push you into an area where they make the most money themselves by encouraging you to buy that particular product or service. So we're completely different from that.
Is your best point of contact within the business the highest level executive, CEO, maybe chief operations officer? Because here's one of the things I could envision is that if you're dealing with a CFO or even somebody a little lower, they may be afraid of what you're going to show and feel like it's a negative reflection on them and the work that they've done. It's really not, because they can't vet every vendor, and there are vendors that they will not know about. So it's not really, but it could, with the right dynamic, it could make them look bad. So
Yes.
do you try to skip over the CFO? And sometimes, let's say the CEO says, yes, we're going to do this, and then the CFO drags their feet and doesn't give you the information that you need, making you have to either work with what they give you or go back to the CEO and say, hey, he's sandbagging us. We're not getting what we need. Talk about that a little bit, that dynamic a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if I was to throw a dart at the bullseye of a dartboard, that bullseye would be the CFO. So the C-suite is who we want to speak to. The CFO is the money manager. That's the person that deals with all the finances. So the CFO is the person that we want to impress. It could be that we meet the CEO and the CEO loves it, and then we speak to the CFO, or we get with the Chief Operation Officer or the VP of Operations and they don't like it. And this happened to me recently with an organization. The CFO loved it. The VP of Operations didn't like it. Therefore, it didn't go ahead. And it's happened also where the CEO liked it, the CFO was on board, but the controller, which is even further down the organization, but very much at the heart of the finances of the organization, if somebody in that chain doesn't like it, that can be the stopper. And it's funny that you touched on that it may make them look bad. That's an objection that we happily overcome. So if you're the CFO of a company, you think, well, if you come in and save me money, that makes me feel like, or makes me look to the board of directors and the senior executives that I'm not doing my job right. That couldn't be further from the truth. And we highlight that to whoever it is in the organization that feels threatened by us, is like, you can take this to the C-suite and it was your idea because you brought in knowledge and systems in place that you don't have. Look what I was able to find, and look how much money they found me. It's not a threat to them whatsoever because it's knowledge they don't have. But yes, that is a difficult part for us. And what we do is that people in organisations they feel threatened by what we do. But again, as I say, we are happy for them to take all the credit. Aren't I a good boy or girl? I brought this to the organisation. I knew we needed this external organisation to bring our organisation a whole ton of money. And sometimes it's to use the CFO and the CEO, because those would be the two people we want to speak to. In some cases, the CEO will say to the CFO, I love this, let's get it done. And then the CFO goes away and does it. And then sometimes the CEO will say to the CFO, let's get this done. And then we get that pushback, everything we've been talking about. And then vice versa as well, as the CFO loves it, but the CEO somehow feels threatened at the top of the organization. This doesn't make me look bad. Or as again, somebody within that senior ring of people feels threatened by it. It's something we have to deal with all the time. And if you're watching this video, don't feel threatened by it. If you're a C-suite executive, we're going to bring tools to the table that you don't have. Pure and simple. And it's not a threat, it's adding value. And we're always trying to add value in other areas as well as franchisees, because we're networkers. So if I can find somebody that a client needs that sells, I don't know, maybe insurance or healthcare or something, and the client needs somebody good, or they've had a bad experience, we're always looking to add other value for our clients. And that's very much part of what we do as franchisee. And me personally, I'm always looking out for businesses that can help my clients. That's not what we do, just so that I can help my clients. And we help our clients in any way we can, as well as what we do. So we bring a whole lot to the table, but kind of like long story short, the answer there is yes, they do feel threatened, and no, they shouldn't feel threatened, because we're not a threat. We bring added value.
Yeah, as long as whoever that person is, whether it's the CEO, and I really wasn't thinking about the CEO, but they answer to the board of directors, and they might have some of the same feelings about it. As long as you can have them own the outcome, and if they go around looking like this, hey, look at what I helped do,
Yes.
they can really be a champion, be seen as a champion. It's just all how you spin it, I think.
There's one other piece that I forgot to say when I was kind of giving you that explanation. You mentioned about the time to give us the information we need. Is because the four currencies we bring to the table is time, money, knowledge, and security. And the two biggest currencies, to be honest, is time and money, because we'll explain this to clients is all the heavy lifting, all that heavy load is done by us. There is some time in the beginning for the client to give us access to the information we need, sign the paperwork, all of that. But if a client or a company is working with any vendor, like they're working with AT&T, they're working with UPS, they're working with Republic Services for the waste, they have to take time out and review contracts and sign stuff. They have to do that with any vendors. We do that piece for them. So they sign on with us, which is, as I say, our agreement's a page and a half long. It doesn't take long. You could literally read our agreement and digest it in 10 minutes. And it's very simple, because it's a very simple model. So I actually have a flyer produced that shows a pie chart of how much time, and it's a little slither of how much time the company has to spend doing this, because we do all the heavy lifting. So we save companies so much time, because how much time does, just say, a CFO or somebody at a senior level, how much are they getting paid per hour? And how much does that cost them, that company, if they're looking at the billing statements that they're constantly having to deal with the vendors for problems? How much time is that money? How much time is that costing in a monetarily value for a client? Because time is money. And if you're being paid a high salary and you're looking at billing statements, you shouldn't be doing any of this, because your staff are being paid a salary to do a particular job. We take that away from them, so they don't have to spend time doing all of this. It's getting done for them. So the time they spend at the beginning is given back to them 100-fold by the amount of time they save by not having to deal with all of this and have somebody continue to monitor the billing statements, which they should be all the time. Actually, we had a client that said no to me. It was a medical group client. They said that they don't have time to keep pulling the billing statements every month to give them to us. I mean, that's like, are you not looking at your billing statements? You should be pulling your billing statements anyway. So in that case, my pushback was, well, you should be pulling your billing statements, and in this case, you don't have to look at them. You just have to download them and send them to us. And in most cases where where the option is available, the clients will give us online access. We always ask for online access, so that the client never has to send us the billing statements. Once we've got online access, we can start looking for all sorts of billing errors, because billing errors is another piece of what we do. And especially if we've got online access at the beginning, we find billing errors, we can trace that billing error as far back as we can, and the money mounts up, and then we go back to the vendor and say our client wants some of this money, then we negotiate that. So in that case, the client's saying no to me because they don't have time to pull the billing statements. It's kind of like, I almost want to bash my head against the wall, because you should be pulling your billing statements and looking at them on a regular basis. In this case, I'm offering you time back where you don't have to be looking at them. We'll do it for you. And not only that, you'll know you have the best deal because we bring all this ammunition to the table for you. So time is a huge currency that we bring to the table, as well as the money.
That's a really good option to get login access to their accounting software. And I'm sure that you have all sorts of blanket releases where you're not going to share information, blah, blah, blah. So,
Well, it's in our
and you
business
have a
terms.
real,
Sorry,
go
Mark.
ahead.
I wanted to correct you, because we're not looking at their accounting software. We don't look at a business's accounting software, because that is a pushback that we get. That the businesses think we don't want you coming into our business and looking at everything we do. We don't look at that. We're not an accounting or a CPA firm. We don't want to or ever look at your QuickBooks or your accounting software at all. We're looking at your billing statements and your contracts that you're using between you and your vendors. That's the only piece that we look at. We don't look at whatever a business is doing, and they don't want their accountant to see any of that. We don't care what they're doing with their accounting software. One thing we do know from their accounting software is that profit and loss statement. When you're spending a ton of money bringing the money in, like sales, marketing, all the costs to make that money go to your bottom line, what we're saying, we guarantee in the loss side of your profit and loss statement, you will keep more of that money, because the services you're spending money on, you'll equal better service and you'll spend less. So I'm glad you said that, because
Yeah.
a lot of businesses will say that to us. They don't want us poking around in all the stuff. We don't go and poke around in all the stuff. We just want to look at your billing statements and your contracts. We're nothing to do with your accounting software. Absolutely not. That's the job of your accountant and your CPAs. It's up to them to do all of that. We're not an accounting company. Although, funnily enough, Schooley Mitchell did start off as an accounting company. Dennis Schooley, the original owner and founder of the company, who's still there, he started in Toronto as a chartered accountant, which is equivalent of a CPA in the United States. So we did start off as an accounting company, but absolutely, hands down, I'm so glad you mentioned that, and it prompted me to say this, is that absolutely we do not look at a business's accounting software or anything to do with their accounting. It's just not what we're doing. It's billing statements and contracts that you're spending money with your vendors. That's it. That's all we need to see.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying and setting me straight, because that is an important difference. Um, what are some of the other objections that a company might bring to you about engaging with you, and how do you overcome those, if there are any others?
There's not really much more in the relation to objections, but like the time is the one where the client will say, I don't have time to do this, or they'll say we're doing a whole bunch of other projects at the moment, so therefore I'm not going to sign just now, and they kick the can down the road, that kind of thing. So it's kind of like emphatic for us to get that message across, is that while you're working in these other projects, we don't get in the way of that. We're not going to take any of your time away from those projects. So that's probably another piece of the objection that's tied to the time part of it, because we get this all the time. Oh, we've got some big projects we're working on this quarter. Let's talk next quarter. A prospective client just said that to me the other day there. So I'm now going to reach out to them literally on the last day of the quarter on Halloween. I will be reaching out to them to say, let's move forward with what we're proposing. So yes, that time piece is one of the biggest pieces that clients push back on, because they think we're somehow going to interfere with other stuff they're doing. We're not. As I explained, it's a small piece of your time to give us information. Then we can be working while you're working in these projects you're already on. You'll still be working on them. In fact, you'll actually have more time on them because the time you'd be spending what you should be doing with your billing statements and all of that, we're doing it for you. So in actual fact, we'll bring back more time for those projects. So I'm glad you asked that question again, because there's always objections, but those are the main ones, and that's a big piece of it. Apart from that, they think it's too much money or it's too long a contract, and I've already covered that because it's not. 50% of something's better than 100% of nothing. So yes. Businesses working on projects kind of ties into the timepiece, but I'm glad you asked the question, because that's another objection that we do have to overcome. My view as a Schooley Mitchell franchisee and as a business person with lots of experience in working in economic development, a huge chunk of my life is that there is actually no reason to not do this, because you're bringing a company into your business that doesn't cost anything. Even when you're paying them money, it doesn't cost anything, because you're paying them for money that you didn't have in your business that was already going out the door. So my view is that every business in the United States and Canada should have a Schooley Mitchell franchisee working with them, because it's such a valuable resource that we bring to the table, all that time, money, knowledge, and security that they simply don't have.
When you're approaching a company that's in a certain industry, are you able to take, and you may not have another company in that industry, but one of your franchisees or someone from corporate will know of one, are you able to say, okay, within this industry, whatever it is, let's just say a tire sales, manufacturing company.
Okay.
Are you able to go back, look to see what the savings were overall? You wouldn't want to talk about a specific company, but the savings overall in that industry, to give them something to grab a hold of. And of course, with disclaimers saying every business is different. Are you able to approach a company with that kind of data?
Yes, because it doesn't matter what industry you're in, because I remember when I first started, I was talking to a medical group, and at that point I hadn't worked with medical groups. I was only like 6 months in. I was still wet behind the ears. And I kind of froze. It's like, oh, well, no, I haven't worked with them. But I since learned is that whether it's me or a franchisee that's worked with 20 medical groups, it's the same people behind the scenes that's doing the work. So I'm happy to say to a client, yes, we've worked with thousands of manufacturers, which we have. We've worked with thousands of them. Whether I've worked with one or not, it doesn't matter, because the team at headquarters who are doing all the work, looking at the billing statements and everything, all that ammunition comes to the table. It comes via the analysts and all the people at headquarters. And we have a testimonial directory, because we're asked to have testimonials, so we can pull testimonials from, say, Mark in Pittsburgh. He's worked with manufacturers. He's got lots of testimonials, and some have worked because we're reports that we produce, we protect them, but we have some of them redacted so that we can share them. So in some cases, we'll share a report with a client with all completely redacted. They don't know who the vendor is. They don't know who the company is, but we can show you, this is what we did for a manufacturing company. Here's what it all looks like. And here was the savings. So yes, we've got literally thousands of examples for each category. And as I say, it doesn't matter whether I've worked in that particular industry or not. And there's very few industries I've not worked in my almost 10 years with Schooley Mitchell. But if I come across an industry, like, I mean, I've worked in manufacturing, but if I haven't, it doesn't matter, because it's not me. I'm just the face of the organization as far as you and I is concerned. I've got the relationship with you, but the brains behind the organization sits at headquarters. So yes, there's not an industry we haven't worked with. And if it's the case that we do find an industry that we haven't worked with, it's the same deal, because we're looking at your billing statements and your contracts, and we're understanding your business model. Because if we look at two manufacturers, that's a great example, because we look at one manufacturer and we go through the questionnaire with them, the business needs. It's going to be different needs from the other manufacturer, because even though they're in the same industry, their particular businesses or the particular people within their organizations want and need different things. And sometimes it's what they want more than anything. It's like, I want this and I don't want that. So we have to work with that. So the individuals within organizations makes it different, even if we have experience within that same industry. And where we don't have the experience, or where I don't personally have the experience in that particular industry, it actually doesn't matter a jot, because it's not me that brings the knowledge to the table. It's my team that brings the knowledge to the table through years and years of working with thousands of businesses.
Yeah. have you noticed this phenomenon that every company thinks that they're so damn unique and that they don't share any attributes with any other company? Yes, each company is unique, but for example, uh, with a regular tire manufacturer, and there's another one that's a snow tire manufacturer, and they'll say, oh no, I could see how this could work for regular tires, but snow tires, no, we're very unique. And there are a lot more, as you seem to be saying, there are a lot more similarities between businesses than differences between businesses. Do you find people throw that up to you as an objection?
Sometimes it's not a huge objection, but sometimes, and get that example of where you've got a tire manufacturer and a snow tire manufacturer. To be honest, with what we do, it doesn't make that much of a difference. But what we do with that, just say you're the snow tire manufacturer, and we've given you a redacted report that we produced for a tire manufacturer, and you go, well, we're a bit different. Okay, tell us how you're different. Just tell us how you're different, and we will work with that. We will understand because we work with thousands of industries. So you tell us your story and what your needs are, and we will work with that when we're talking to your vendors, educate us in what you want. Because the bottom line is that if you're a tire manufacturer of any flavor, the needs are basically the same because it's that you want the best product at the best price. I mean, that's what we offer and bring to the table to help our clients get. So yes, we would work with the client, and that's what the fact finding piece is for. That's why it's not just a case of give us your billing statements, we'll go and speak to your vendors and other vendors, and we'll come back with an audit report. That's not what it's about. It's about understanding your particular needs. So we have to get through that face to face, ask you a list of questions and a fact finding. And one thing I can say about the reporting, if I can just kind of chime in with our reporting system. So when we go away and we speak to the vendors, so just say you're with AT&T. We're going to talk to AT&T. We're also going to talk to T-Mobile. We're also going to talk to Verizon. So when we come back with our audit report, having done the fact finding with you to understand your particular needs and looked at your billing statements and your contract to understand your needs and how you're doing business with them, we come back with that audit report for free. And in the audit report, we'll play it back to you. Here's where your hard-earned money's been spent. You're with AT&T. This is what it looks like. And here's our recommendations. And one of the recommendations is always to stay where you are. So here's the best deal to stay with AT&T. Here's the deal with T-Mobile. Here's the deal with Verizon. So you get to decide what you want to do with that. And as I said, is that once we put that report in front of the client, most of our clients never switch providers, but even where they do switch providers, in this case, we would work with AT&T, we would work with, say, T-Mobile, and we make sure everything happens in the background to implement everything. We don't plug equipment in and install equipment. We work behind the scenes to make sure that happens. So whether you're staying with your vendor or whether you're switching vendors and you make that decision, we work with the vendors for you to get everything implemented. So you don't have to do any of that. You don't have to be working and implementing anything. You may need to bring an IT company in to install things, just depending how complex the situation is. But yeah, we help with all of that behind the scenes. So that report comes to you for nothing. And then you decide what you want to do with it. All of that's in there. So our clients mostly, it's over 85% of the time, they don't switch providers. And if they do, they've chosen to switch providers.
Let's use that example. Let's say the company is with AT&T, and you go to the other vendors and you find one vendor that's significantly less. Would you first take that initial information to your client, and then if they say, well, go back to AT&T and see if they will match this offer from Verizon?
T-Mobile, yeah. The short answer is that's part of what we do behind the scenes before we present the report.
Okay.
So we're working with the client, in this case, telecom, as I say, for the viewer, that we've got 14 different categories. This is just one category we're talking about. So the client's with AT&T, so we're negotiating with AT&T, so we're also negotiating with T-Mobile, who we're also negotiating for thousands of clients behind the scenes as well, and they know that. So T-Mobile says, okay, we'll give the client $1,000 a month less of a deal. So we don't go to AT&T and say, T-Mobile said this, so give us that. We just show the AT&T, look, we've got a deal that offers the exact service the clients want for this cost, and here's what it looks like. Can you match that? So we do that piece. So by the time we present the report, that piece is already being done.
Okay, good. So before we start winding down, is there any other key information that you usually share with a potential client that we haven't talked about? I want to be sure that we uncover all of the main talking points, benefits, et cetera, before we start winding down.
I would just say, look, when I'm prospecting, some clients that they won't even have a conversation with me. I mean, it's the same for anybody who's selling or marketing any product or service, is that some clients will not have a conversation. Have a conversation with me. And I guess I'm glad you asked the question, because I'm guess that we haven't talked about this, is that it's not a pushy sales conversation. It's like you're the business owner, the CFO, the CEO. You're the senior person. I'm just going to show you what we have, and then let's work out if it's a fit. Because in some cases, it's not always a fit, because people don't fit. Sometimes they just don't want us there for whatever reason. But a lot of businesses are making their mind up about what we do before they talk to us. That the example you gave is like the credit card processing salesperson, the shipping person, the telecom person calls them up, and they throw us into that bucket with them. We're not them. Have that conversation, because the franchise network, we're not like that. But me specifically in my office, I educate. I'm going to educate you in what we have and what we do, and talk to you about how it could potentially help your business. And that's one piece to understand, is that you're not going to be putting the back foot, like sitting there with your hands folded and leaning back the whole time thinking, this guy's trying to sell me. How do I get this guy off the line? Not like that at all. Just have the conversation with us. 20 minutes is all we ask. Have a conversation, learn what we do, then make a decision. Don't make a decision based on preconceptions, or even if you've had a bad experience with a company in our space. We're not that company. Talk to us about our experiences. Just have the conversation. That's what I had asked anybody who's watching this video. Just have a conversation with us, because we won't do a pushy sales routine on you. It's absolutely not the case. I'm here to help. My ethos, every cell in my body wants to help people and help every way I can, and my business allows me to do that. So even if you don't become a client of mine, I may during the conversation, you may say, you know what, staffing costs is one of my biggest bugbears. Well, I've got somebody for you. It's not me, but if I can help you. But again, the bottom line is just have that conversation with us. Don't shut the door on us before you absolutely know what we do, because there's a lot of information you're missing out on. And I guarantee that, and it's in our business terms, I guarantee if you work with us, you'll get results, or there's no cost whatsoever.
That's really good. And it leads me to think of another dynamic that with some people, especially senior leaders, it may not be that they don't feel like they have time, but they don't have mental space in their estimation.
Yep.
They feel like they're overworked. They've got so many things going on in their minds, and they don't even have mental space, even though this is a very important part of their business. So I would think that catching people at the right moment and trying to get that, once you get in front of them, it's such a rational choice for a business owner to make. But they have to have the mental space and to be able to even entertain it.
Yeah, and we from that mental space, feeling like you're crowded. I've got so many. I'm juggling so many balls in the air at the same time. We can help you juggle one less ball. So it's one way to
Right.
think of it. Just I get it that you've got all these balls in the air. How do I have time to talk to this guy? Have a conversation. 20 minutes is all it takes, and then you'll understand is that what we bring to the table not only will save you money, but will save you a ton of time as well. And it'll take pressure off your team. It'll take pressure off many areas of your business, because we're doing this work behind the scenes for you. Therefore, whatever's going on in your mind that's making you go crazy and you think you don't have time to talk to us, take the time, because it's like going to the doctor. We have a solution. We have something for your symptoms of that crowded brain. We can take a little piece of it away from you, that we will deal with it for you. Therefore, just having one less ball in the air to juggle.
And I bet you anything that person that feels like they're so overwhelmed, they're not keeping an eye on the balance sheet. They're not doing what you're doing. So you're
Exactly.
adding another valuable service that because if their mind is that full, they're not looking at bottom line and expenses.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at you're juggling all the balls in the air, and one of those balls in the air is your bottom line and expenses. Do you know what's going on with every single one of the balls inside out, all the way around completely? You don't. You can't. I mean, it's just it's impossible if you're juggling so many balls, and one of those balls is your profit and loss. You can look at the statement, you can see it, but your mind's thinking of all these other things that you have to do within the business. So we take one aspect of it away. I'll give an example where a business owner didn't want to do business with us. I had said to this business that we spend all our time. This is our day job. We don't do anything else. And this business had said it's our day job as well. We negotiate with vendors all the time. I didn't sign this client because they didn't like my response. My response was, yes, I understand your business model. You do have to deal with your vendors and you have to negotiate vendors a lot, but you do a million other things. And kind of like that kind of shot the argument down right there and then. And I will never make anybody feel bad in a situation to say, aren't you stupid because we're better than you? This is just the facts of the matter. This person realized, yeah, he's right, because even though I am dealing with my vendors on a constant basis, I've got a million other things I have to do. He's coming in, he's saying, they don't have anything, we don't have anything else to do. We don't do anything but this. And that was the point. So in this case, that was an objection this particular owner didn't like. So it's one of those places where I want to bash my head against the wall. Is like, I've just explained to you that yes, you're good at what you do, because it's one of the things that I'll say to a business owner, C-suite, whoever it is I'm talking to, that as a start, I'm sure you've got the best deal possible. And I assume that because whatever your situation is, you'll have the best deal possible that you could negotiate. I don't detract from that because businesses will say, yeah, we've got great deals. We're good at what we do. I'm not disputing that, but if you bring us in, you'll have more ammunition to be even better at what you do. And it's not a detractment on how good you are at your job. It's just that there's tools and ammunition you don't have. So that was an example of where the client didn't sign with us because the objection was that this is all they do all day long. And then they realized, well, we don't actually do it all day long. So you can't win every time. You can't take a horse to water and make it drink. But that's another example of that objection where the client didn't sign with us, and the client should have signed with us because we would have saved them a lot of time and money.
Yeah. And the reason that somebody might continue to do business with a vendor can have nothing to do with the value that they're getting and the price that they're getting. They could just like that particular rep. They've worked with them a long time. And if that rep says, okay, we're not going to increase the service for this contract period, then because of fatigue, and you just say, okay, let's just go with it. I mean, how many people compare commercial insurance every time it comes due? You know, they just roll it over.
They don't.
And deal with small increases.
They don't. We all do it in business, but we all do it even in our personal lives. We're all guilty of it. We're all guilty of just continuing to pay things and not reviewing them and not going out to the markets and looking at other things. That takes time, knowledge, and energy. And from a business perspective, it's an even bigger amount of time. It's even a bigger amount of energy. And our argument is always, it's the truth argument. It's a true argument is that we'll spend that time for you, making sure that the deal you have is the best deal you have. Because again, people push back and say, I've got the best deal possible. Let's have a look. Doesn't cost you anything. That example where we found $365,000 over the 3-year period for a client, that client thought they had the best deal possible. They said, why not have a look? It doesn't cost anything because we'll do the audit for nothing. And they were like, hey ho, because that's where the security part comes in, time, money, knowledge, and security. Security, our knowledge will put you in a secure knowledge that you have the best deal possible. It happens sometimes where we say to the client, you know what? We can't beat that. You've got the best deal possible. We can't get you a better deal. And then the audit's for free. So that was an example where that client says, hey, I'll have a look under the hood. There's no harm in having a company like us have a look under the hood for you because you've got, if you go to like a mechanic, I'm using an analogy here. If you go to a mechanic's workshop and they look under the hood and they find problems, they start sucking the air on and going, oh, it's going to cost you. We look under the hood of your expenses and we find problems. We're going to find you money because we know how to solve those problems for you. Well, there's problems there, problems there. That's costing you too much. That's costing you too much. We'll fix it. So when we put the hood back down for your business, those problems are fixed. And unlike going to the car mechanic, it's not going to cost you. you're going to pay us, but there's more money coming into your bank account because of what we did.
Yeah. So I understand you're in Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Um, do you have restrictions? Let's say someone from Louisville, Kentucky, watches this. Can they approach you, regardless of geography? I would imagine you have some limitations about where you can market, maybe not, but talk to me about who you can and cannot work with based on geography or any other categories, because
Do-
I do want to be able to direct people to you,
yeah.
which we'll do in a moment.
Yeah. Like we can work with clients. There's 360 offices across the USA and Canada. Me personally, we can all work with clients anywhere in North America. That's anywhere in Canada, anywhere in the United States. For example, just this morning, I set an appointment with a law firm in California. I'm having a Zoom call with them tomorrow. It's the first initial call. I've worked with clients in all different states. One of my biggest clients is in Iowa. We have a footprint, so we're encouraged. I'm in Tampa Bay, so I'm encouraged to market within my footprint. We're not allowed to say go to Chicago and do a telemarketing campaign or do a mail campaign in Nashville. We're not allowed to do that. But if you said to me, I've got 40 clients in Chicago I want you to talk to, I've got 25 clients in Seattle, 8 clients in Houston, Texas, I want you to talk to, yes, we can take any business in any part of the country or any part of Canada. We're not we have a footprint that we're supposed to market to. As I said, we can't do a telemarketing campaign. They don't encourage us to do telemarketing campaigns anyway, because we're not that kind of organization. Ours is much more relational. So we're looking for referrals. So we tend to get referred all over the country because there's franchisees in other parts of the country in Canada who've got clients in Tampa, for example. And that's sometimes like, oh, you've got a client here. Well, I might have a client in your city as well. So the way we do it at Schooley Mitchell, just say I'm looking at your business. I go into the client registry. So we've got a registry. So it means that when I go into that client registry, I put your name of your company in and it says there's no office working with you. Because then I'll protect you and I can put a ring fence around your organization for 12 months. So they give us a certain amount of months to work with. It's like ongoing for the life of your business. And I can protect you. We don't get like an infinite amount, so it's a set amount of months. So I can protect you for 12, I can protect that business for 3, etc. And that means that any franchisee that starts talking to you or tries to sign you, they'll go into the registry and they'll see that I'm already working with you, I've already got you protected. So we protect the individual businesses, but we don't have actual territories. It doesn't work like that, although you are encouraged to operate within your own footprint. But yeah, again, that's it kind of goes without saying. I'm not going to go to Pittsburgh and blanket market Pittsburgh because my buddy Mark's over there and he's working in that area. So and likewise, he's not going to do that. But I can take clients in Pittsburgh. He can take clients in Tampa just the same.
Okay. So let's say somebody really is impressed with your approach, presentation, ethics, as am I,
Thank you.
and they want to reach out to you. What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Well, they can reach out to me. I'll give you my cell phone number, which is 813-449-1215. Text me, call me. I'm very approachable. If I don't answer, I'll pick up the message and I'll get right back to you. Or you can reach me at my email address, which is my name, william.mckisock@schooleymitchell.com. Or you can go to my website, which is schooleymitchell.com/W McKissock, my name in the box there in this video interview.
Spell out your last name just to be
Yeah,
clear.
so my email address is William WILLIAM .MCKISSOCK at SCHOOLEYMITCHELL.com, william.mckisock@schooleymitchell.com, and my email address is schooleymitchell.com sorry, my not my email, my website is schooleymitchell.com / my last name, WMCKISSOCK.
Great. And we'll put that information down in the description below,
Yeah.
in the YouTube channel. Well, this has been great. I had known of someone in this business, and I love the business model. Um, not only is it a win-win, but it's a no-lose proposition. And I really, I find that when you have these sorts of relationships with people, and vendors, it really pays off. There's a lot of energy that is created from that type of work. So I really appreciate it and have been a big fan of the concept. I meant to mention at the very beginning, I am not a Smurf. I've got a new, I look very purple in my video. I've got a new computer. My Christmas gift was the death of my main computer that I've had for over 10 years.
Right.
So I'm dealing with a new computer, and I bet it's brightness settings that I don't have right. So I'm not ill, and I'm not a Smurf. I'm a I'm a normal human with pinkish skin. But when you look at the contrast between our two uh, videos, I'm really dark, and I've got lights all in front of me. So anyway, but thank you so much for your time, your expertise. I love this offering, and the more people that could use it, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Um, so if today's conversation sparked ideas or opened your eyes to new opportunities inside your own business, I would encourage you to reach out to William at the contact information that we'll put down below. You can find out more in those show notes. If you're interested in learning more about Outmarket.pro and our marketing solutions for small businesses, you can find us online at www.outmarket.pro. Be sure to like, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you won't miss any podcasts that we do. So thanks again. Thanks again, William, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you for having me.